Donald Trump is once again throwing a tariff tantrum because at a moment in which his presidency has hit its lowest point yet, with MAGA turning on Trump every which way over his Jeffrey Epstein scandal, he decided to make it worse by once again crashing the stock market. And this time, he is not getting the same excuses from the MAGA media praising him for his trade war because they realize how bad it is. And we are going to get into how Fox just threw him under the bus. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into how Fox stabbed Trump in the back as the markets are crashing, I want to start with why. Donald Trump's latest tariff announcement broken down on CNBC.
President Trump announcing tariffs on imports from Canada of 35%. Something must have made him mad. I don't know what the latest is. Maybe Megan knows. They start on August 1st. Megan Casella joins us now from Washington. Any particular thing or just slow walking the whole process? What did anything in particular spur this latest threat?
Not that we know of yet, Joe. We might learn today, but we don't know exactly what sparked this latest Canada threat. But I'll say there were two big escalations overnight on the trade and tariff front from the president. Canada being the first one, 35% on imports from Canada, which, by the way, the second largest U.S. trading partner and the largest buyer of American goods last year. Now, an administration official did tell me late last night that the exemptions currently in place for USMCA compliant goods likely will remain, as will the lower 10% tariff for energy imports. That would soften this a little bit, but still a significant escalation from the 25% level where it is now to 35% on everything else. I was told that decision is not final. And this does come, to your point, just a few days, I think 2 weeks after the president was first angry about Canada's digital services tax. And then once Prime Minister Mark Carney pulled that back, then things seemed to be back on track. So we don't know what caused this one. The other big tariff threat overnight, though, is that President Trump also told NBC News he's considering raising the universal baseline tariff from the 10% level where it has been since April to 15 or even 20%. So that would mean everything U.S. companies and consumers buy from abroad would cost at a minimum an extra 20% in the form of tariffs. And if I can take just a step back, this week began with the president postponing that major July 9th deadline for the country-specific tariffs to kick in. It looked like a potential softening of his trade stance, or at least a delay. But since then, we've seen these new tariff threats for Canada and Brazil. Neither of them were facing the deadline before. A 50% tariff on copper, a potential 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals, and now a possible doubling of the baseline tariff. So, guys, a vast expansion of the trade war on multiple fronts just in the past few days.
So Donald Trump sees his MAGA crowd, his cultists, burning their hats, throwing away their merch, turning on Trump, realizing what we've known all along, that he's a liar and he's just been playing games with them. And he's decided in a moment when he's losing his own supporters that he should go to war once again with our neighbors to the north, with our allies. This is Donald Trump's ingenious plan. Really? Well, it's not surprising, I guess, that the most idiotic president is continuing to launch the most idiotic trade war. But his old vice president is actually pointing it out because it's just so bad.
I watched a little bit of the cabinet meeting this week, and I saw Secretary Bessent speaking very glowingly about the projection is $300 billion in tariff revenue this year. Well, tariffs are a tax, and American importers and businesses and ultimately consumers pay almost all of that. And so literally a week after we managed to extend the Trump-Pence tax cuts and prevent a $2,000 tax increase on working families, the administration is right now boasting of the fact that that the average American household is going to see about $3,000 increase in the cost of goods.
Weird to see Mike Pence in the news, but I'm fine with it if he's just going to be slamming Donald Trump for his tariffs. Again, effectively a tax on consumers, and something that has not been pointed out since the original Liberation Day mega crash, a way for Donald Trump and his buddies to clearly just be insider trading. They are allowing the markets to fall, buying the dip, selling off before Donald Trump inevitably posts another Truth Social meltdown letter, tariff tantrum, and then that's all we've seen. And now people are finally coming to the realization in the MAGA media that Donald Trump is responsible for crashing our economy, which is why we saw this on Fox this morning. The chyron on Fox read, "Stocks fall as Trump threatens new tariffs." The stock market is once again falling because we have the stupidest person in our country running our economy, and he's running it into the ground. Donald Trump talks about who's a communist or who's a socialist or who's a Marxist, but he's really the one doing price controls, and those controls are turning things up to 11 with new 35%, 70%, 180% tariffs for no reason out of the blue. And Donald Trump thinks he's being all big and tough and strong and intimidating. It's the reason he does the tariffs in the first place, but sending them via digital letters on a social media platform that no one uses, I wouldn't call the most tough guy move in the world. He's sending a letter. It's like he's not even making like a stern phone call. He's not like, pick up right now and I'm gonna ream you out for not taking the deal. Like, he's sending a letter. And he's misspelling words in it and addressing people by the wrong gender. He called the female leader of a country he sent a letter to Mr. President. He's a moron. If that doesn't go to show how out of control this whole process, if you can even call it that, is, I don't know what will. There is no cohesive strategy here. It's why the markets are responding so poorly. When many people thought that tariffs weren't actually happening, because as has been reported inside the White House, many people just view them as a joke and as a PR stunt, the fact that Donald Trump is bringing them back has everyone scared, including those in MAGA world. But unsurprisingly, over the past couple of days, they've tried their best to distract from all scandals happening with Donald Trump, and they're turning that attention for some reason to Jasmine Crockett. And two clips really showed their obsession getting very, very weird.
A shocking poll shows Texas Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is leading in the race for incumbent Republican John Cornyn's Senate seat. Even bigger news, though, the massive backlash over her making the Texas flood disaster all about her. Well, it's not news, because she does that with everything. Even talking about her hairstyle. That's an odd mix of topics. Plus,
as far as Jasmine goes, I researched her, and it's never good when I do that. I found out she's single. She's 43. She's never been married. And I'm trying to figure out what makes her tick. I think I can set her up with someone.
Oh, my God.
I know a guy in D.C., Emily. He's white. Hopefully that's not a problem, but he will make her happy. And maybe then she will not hate everybody else besides herself so much. So if you're interested, I will set it up. And it would be my pleasure to do it.
Okay. Yes to that. We'll circle back on that. All right. So
Jasmine Crockett's star continues to grow, and MAGA is freaking out. I don't know why that freaking out is taking the form of Jesse Waters commenting on the race of a man he wants to set Jasmine Crockett up with, considering the past that Jesse Waters has had. With his female counterparts, I wouldn't really trust the company of his buddies. Do you know Jesse Waters on air bragged about, and I believe this is while he was still married, letting the air out of the tires of one of the producers of his show so that he could give her a ride home? He said that, that wasn't discovered about Jesse Waters. He publicly said that. He's like, that's my move. What? These people are weirdos, and their obsession is strange, and they're focused on everything but what matters, which is scandals and screw-ups all over the place in this administration of essentially Fox News hosts. That's the point of Donald Trump's administration, isn't to get anything done. And that's been abundantly clear with the failure, the lack of job done by Kristi Noem. That was broken down on MSNBC right here.
Very small level when you're talking about the budget of the agency. I want to read from the letter you wrote about your concerns about this policy as it relates to hurricane season. You say there were reports of FEMA's incomplete hurricane season plan on the cusp of the start of the hurricane season and the slowness in providing the plan to the committee are unsettling. Any such plan must detail how FEMA's life-saving missions will not be hindered by your recent directive, requiring all department obligations over $100,000 be reviewed and approved by your prior to obligation, especially since the memorandum stated your office would take a minimum of 5 days to complete each review. Yeah. This added layer of bureaucracy threatens to delay work that can mean the difference between life and death for disaster victims. Do you think, is this policy still in place as far as you understand it?
as far as I understand it, which is one of the stupidest decisions and policies I've ever heard of, especially when it comes to disaster response. And for an administration that tries to talk about red tape, they are adding red tape here. They are adding bureaucracy. They're making it harder for us to be able to deploy and be able to get resources out. And that's the most serious when it comes to responding to disasters. So yes, I'm very concerned that if a hurricane hits, certainly if it hits my state in New Jersey, are we going to have to be begging Kristi Noem to be able to get off Instagram to be able to actually go and do her job of trying to approve resources that our state and our country needs so badly? This is a terrible idea to bottleneck. We should be able to pre-position resources. We should give freedom for our disaster response experts to be able to handle this. You know, that is why we have this organization. And especially the minimum 5-day notice that it's going to take for them to be able to approve these, you know, that just shows how it's slowing everything down.
We covered the delayed response that we saw from FEMA and from Kristi Noem a few days ago, and it's still just really, really irking me, which is not a strong enough description of how upset I am with what is happening right now in Texas. We are in an epidemic of thoughts and prayers that allows MAGA, conservatives at large, to get away with being such bad actors, having the country move on. You know, I've talked about this a lot in the light of the Doge cuts, I hate that I have to call him that, in Donald Trump's big ugly bill, healthcare it'll strip away from people, the hospitals that will close. And you have to think, how much pain do people have to endure before they realize they're voting the wrong way? Do you have to lose your SNAP benefits and go hungry to realize that Donald Trump and Republicans will always screw you? Do you have to have your town flooded? Do people have to lose their lives for anyone to wake up? It seems like these stories have to be uniquely personal to people for them to ever learn. And if that's the case, it's then the goal of MAGA media to make sure none of these stories stick around long enough, that we move on from Texas. We offer thoughts and prayers and then we move on. Because if we examine the policy failure, which they call politicizing the situation, then people might start to learn in a mass way. MAGA can't have that happen, but we need to make sure it does and continue to talk about this. I promise we're going to on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.